Chapter 53, The Coming Storm. Finals went well. I no longer had to worry about the mecha around me, which was wonderful. And I even managed to resist the temptation to cheat when I couldn't figure out the answers. After thinking about it for a while, I decided to go to Simfer and see if I could find Master Yakutron over the break. When I told Perceptor about it, he volunteered to watch my symbiotes for me. I left Laserbeak and the twins with him, but decided to bring Ravage. We took a ground bridge, which was actually not that much more expensive than taking a mass transit because Simfer was all the way on the other side of the planet. It would probably take Orns to get that far by mass transit anyway. It was bright and sunny. The Orn I left Perceptor's house and walked to the ground bridge station. The city was truly brilliant in all of its reflected light and bright golden towers. Other cities had come and gone, had fallen and been rebuilt, but the buildings in Yakon had weathered the Quintesson Wars, and probably wars before that. Now, in the height of the Golden Age, it stood proudly, ancient and wise, almost as if it had a spark of its own. Despite everything, despite Searchlight being offline here, and the council being corrupt, and all of the poverty in the suburbs and slums, Yakon was still a wonder. Simfer was a very different sort of wonder. It was also a very old city, though the central sector had been rebuilt several times between wars. It also boasted the largest temple of Primus in the world, in which they kept the Allspark, or that was what Mecha said. That had always confused me, a little because the Allspark was also supposed to be in the Well of Allsparks. The buildings were painted lighter, softer colors than Yakon's ostentatious gold. They were mostly white and silver with the occasional light gray, green or blue. It had the effect of making the place feel quiet and clean and peaceful. The crowds were less noisy too, which was nice. Of course I was getting to the point with my range, when I barely had to think about moving it in order to avoid Mecha I didn't want in my helm. So Ravage said, "How are you going to find him?" He'd been asking the question silently for a while, but I hadn't answered. I wasn't really sure. Central Simfer was large and crowded, and he could be anywhere in it, or even in a different sector. He might not even really be in Simfer. If I'd been able to hear Alpha Trion's thoughts, I'd probably have a better idea where he was. If I pushed my range out far enough, I might be able to find him. That wasn't really healthy, but so long as I didn't keep it out too long, I'd be fine. Soundwave. You aren't going to expand your range to find him. First, I would want a map of the city. I could go to places he was more likely to be and expand my range there first. I just want to try it and see if it works. I said. I can always bring my range back in. But you could hurt yourself. Ravage dug his claws into my shoulders. I'll be fine. I accessed a public database and found a map. Yakutron would be staying somewhere quiet, somewhere out of the way, or maybe not. Maybe he'd be somewhere close to the temple. I walked in that direction. I wanted to see the temple anyway. I'd seen images and holograms of it, but images never did anything justice. This isn't the sort of thing you normally do, Ravage thought. Go find someone without anyone having told you to. I don't know if Yakutron knows about Searchlight, I said. And I was curious about what it was Alpha Trion wanted him to do, not to mention a little bit worried. The temple was, as I'd expected, more spectacular than any representation I'd seen of it. I hadn't expected the feeling though. I could feel the Allspark, like a persistent sort of humming in the back of my processor. It wasn't exactly unpleasant, but it was unpleasantly strong. If I pulled my range in as close as I could, the feeling mostly went away, but with my range too small, I felt blind. I decided I wasn't going to stay here long, but I could go ask the guards at the front if they'd seen Yakutron. As I approached, the guards at the front doors both prepared to tell me I couldn't bring Ravage into the temple. I went up to the one who felt more sorry about it. "Excuse me," I said before he could speak, "but I was wondering if you've heard of someone named Yakutron being here." An image of Master Yakutron flashed in his processor. Yes, he had been here. He's here sometimes. He comes and talks to the temple guardians fairly frequently. I nodded, then turned and left. From both of them I'd managed to pick out enough. The guards at the door knew and recognized him, and he'd been here recently. The question was, where did he come from? I did not want to sit and wait for him at the temple. Even with my range as small as I could make it, I was a little uncomfortable. It was strong enough that other mecha around me could feel it too, to some degree. But what was distant and pleasant for them was overwhelming for me. Maybe Yakutron was somewhere nearby. Flying in this part of the city wasn't allowed, so I walked. I reached out with my range to the point where I was feeling dizzy, then pulled it back. Then I walked some more. I went in a spiral, using the temple as a center point because it was the center of the city. I pushed my range out every once in a while so I could cover the city, piece by piece. Ravage assumed that was what I was doing, though he didn't ask. He was still worried, but he didn't say anything. I'd only spiraled around 3 times before I found Yakutron at the edge of my range, meditating. I brought my range back in and changed direction. Even though I couldn't hear his thoughts, I could understand why Alpha Trion had threatened me. I was more powerful than most mecha realized, especially now that I had control of my range. I could find anyone, just by knowing what city they were in. I could discover any secret, so long as it was known by someone I could read. I could become very dangerous. It was a little intimidating, especially since I knew the government knew who I was. Alpha Trion had scared them off somehow, but they did know. And even without being forced to, it would be easy to abuse my power. I was already doing it to some extent. I didn't need to talk to Master Yakutron. In fact, there was a distinct possibility that he wouldn't want to see me. And even though I did want to let him know about Searchlight, I also had questions for him. He had been intending to teach one more student, and from the timing and what Alpha Trion had said, it seemed like it might have been Orion. Why Orion? It was none of my business, of course. Maybe I shouldn't go talk to him. I stopped. Ravage, who'd been nodding off, looked up. Didn't you find him? Isn't that why you changed directions? What's wrong? Nothing. Now that I was here and I had found him, I didn't want to leave. It had been a long time and I missed him. I was making progress too. I didn't have much time to practice with school and I had no one to spar with, but I was getting a lot better at meditating since I'd learned to pull my range in. I was going to talk to him. I wasn't intending to do anything bad with the information I picked up from the conversation. I wouldn't even ask him about Orion. I wouldn't ask him anything I didn't think he'd want to answer. I'd just go make sure he knew about Searchlight and thank him again for being such a wonderful teacher. I kept going. The building he was in was very large. Some reasonably well-off mech lived here. Interesting. I hesitated, then requested entry. The mech who owned the entire ground floor came to get the door. "Good Orn," he said. "Can I help you with anything? I wonder if he's another beggar or if he's lost." "I'm looking for Master Yakutron," I said quietly. "I'm a former student." "Oh," he said. He was an old student as well, and he'd been letting Yakutron stay in his home. "He isn't available to talk at the moment." "That's fine. I'm willing to wait." The mech still stood in the doorway, watching me with a little suspicion still. Why are you looking for him? I'm one of his most recent students. He left my school suddenly, and I haven't seen him since. I heard somewhere that he was here and came looking for him. I just wanted to talk to him. It's hard to tell if he's sincere since he's got that mask on. What is your designation? Soundwave. Oh. He told me about you. This is that student whose friend died. Master Yakutron was devastated to hear that. He very nearly left Simfer to find this mech. Seeing him will hopefully settle the Master Spark about that matter. He's certainly been troubled about something. You can come in and wait for him if you like. I followed him inside, reaching up to touch Ravage's paw, signaling that he needed to stay on my shoulders and on his best behavior while we were here. I'm Vanguard, the mech said. He taught me as well. I nodded. It's good to meet you. Yes, he agreed. Any true student of Master Yakutron is a friend of mine. He's better than a teacher, and he teaches you more than Circuitsu. I nodded again. He is meditating now, and I don't want to disturb him. He's been troubled recently. Why? I asked, pushing my range out to where I could hear Yakutron. I don't know the entirety of it, but he's told me he won't be teaching anymore. I think he misses it already. He said something similar when he left my school, I said. I'm worried. So am I, Vanguard admitted quietly. But I'm sure he'll be happy to see you. How far did you get in your training? We spoke a little more, but then Yakutron, deep in a contemplation and in tune with the universe, sensed me by virtue of the fact that I had once heard the voice of Primus and was pulled from his meditative state. He got to his pits thoughtfully and came to find us. I waited to look up until he was in the doorway. Soundwave. Vanguard looked up as well. Oh. Master Yakutron. Soundwave here showed up at the door and asked to see you. I wasn't sure, but I thought I'd be polite and let him in. I hope this doesn't bother him. Yakutron's surprise melted away, and a smile broke across his faceplate. I certainly did not expect to see you here. He crossed the room and put a hand on my arm, looking up at my screen. The last time I saw him, he was only a little taller than me. You came and found me again. So many of my students just disappear into their own lives once I am finished teaching them. I thought Soundwave would be one of those, especially since he looked down. I heard about Searchlight. I bowed my helm as well. I came, in part, to tell you if you hadn't. What happened? I had failed him. He said the wrong things to a senator. I wasn't there to stop him. Master Yakutron shuttered his optics. Vanguard looked up. Primus, does that mean what it sounds like it means? Where was this? He asked. Iacon, Master Yakutron said. Wasn't it? I nodded. He was far too reckless, of course that does not excuse the council. Master Yakutron sighed. Justice is dying. I have a duty, but my spark is still too troubled. I don't want to help start the war. I don't want to believe it's inevitable. But I shouldn't be worrying about this right now. It is very good to see you in any case, Master Yakutron said. You must tell me how you have been. I wanted to come make sure he was all right after I heard about Searchlight, but I never did. He looks well enough. Calmer than I've seen him sometimes in the past. Perhaps more focused. I spent a whole quarter of a form moping, I admitted. But then I decided to go to school again. The Iacon Academy accepted me. Are you going into technology? I nodded. A good field. Not many mecha to practice Circuitsu with though. I shook my helm. But meditating has become easier. He was a little surprised by that news. That is good. I wish it was easier for me right now. Come with me. I followed him out of the room. I have not given instruction for a long time. Perhaps I shouldn't, but I do miss having students so very much. You wouldn't mind if I judge for myself how well you have been practicing. I would be honored. I hadn't even hoped for this. He led me into the room he'd been meditating in. Please be seated. You must begin by meditating. Do you have any time constraints? No. Can I watch? Ravage asked. You may, if you are quiet, Master Yakutron said. Go sit by the side of the room. Ravage obediently leapt off my shoulders and headed for the side of the room. I turned off my screen, pulled in my range, and listened. Hearing the universe was a very different experience from reading a mind. It was not distracting, but clarifying. And I could sometimes even tell things like whether someone had spoken to Primus. Yakutron had. He almost never thought about it, though, so I still had questions about it. You are right. You have improved. Master Yakutron said. I couldn't hear his thoughts because I had pulled my range in, but I wasn't startled by his words because I could feel him there. As soon as I thought about that though, I lost my focus. Be still, Master Yakutron said, and I complied, letting my thoughts settle again. After meditating with me for nearly half a jour, Master Yakutron stood. Let us begin, he said. You learned much in the terms I trained you, but there is still much to learn. Your strength is in defense. Because it has been so long, let's begin with some of that. We fell easily into training. I was terribly out of practice. I had been meditating some, but mostly just on campus in between classes. Having rumble and frenzy in the room was not conducive to that sort of thing. It was also hard not to think about Searchlight. The entire reason I trained with Yakutron in the first place was because it was something my best friend had wanted to do. We were both tired when we finished. I thanked him for his instruction, and he smiled and accepted my thanks, but added on to the end, breaking with tradition. I also thank you. It is a pleasure to teach, and you cannot know how much I have enjoyed training you. I could, actually, and did. Though, he said, and guilt-colored his emotional core. Perhaps I should be training someone else. An image of Orion came into my processor. But no, he was not ready a forn ago, and I doubt he is ready now. So it was Orion. I also am not ready. But I must be ready before it is too late. This Orn, though, perhaps I can put that aside. Master Yakutron, I said, now feeling guilty as well, because he had answered the question I had told myself I wasn't going to ask. Yes. I found that I didn't have anything to say. I wanted to apologize, but he wouldn't understand unless I explained the whole thing to him, and I didn't want to worry him with my secrets now, even though I definitely trusted him enough to tell him. I see you are troubled, he said. Please speak, Soundwave. You won't teach any more? I asked. No, Master Yakutron said. Perhaps one more student. And then what? I asked. We shall see, Master Yakutron said. I am so tired of this life, of watching mecha suffer, of being left behind. There is a possibility I will go back to teaching in the future, but then again, maybe not. Now, I am afraid I have kept you here entirely too late. Vanguard, who had heard the tail end of the conversation, came around the corner. Soundwave, would you like to stay here for the off-cycle? Thank you, I said. I would be very grateful. I'll get a room ready, he said. How are your other friends? Master Yakatron asked. Ratchet is working hard in school, I said. Probably too hard, but it's how he copes. Breeze is moving forward. She misses Sayurchlight more than she says. Master Yakatron nodded. He had such a brilliant spark. I am so sorry. It shouldn't have happened, but he knows that. There's probably not much I can say about it that he hasn't already thought through. There's so much darkness in this world, isn't there? And it never quite seems to go away, no matter what you do. Even in the Forens after the Quintesson Wars, it lingered like a blight. Greed, corruption, lies. There were good primes and bad primes, and then I was worried when the councils took over, but that seemed to work for a while. I am afraid things will not get better. If anything, they are likely to get worse. The council may be beyond saving, and if things continue, there may be war. There will be war. I am so sorry. Master Yakatron. Yes, Soundwave. If there is war, then there is war. You sound so troubled about it. It isn't like you could stop it. Oh, Meckling, you have no idea what war is. No, Master Yakatron said, trying to banish the memories creeping into the back of his processor. I doubt I can stop it. But I am obligated to play a role in it. It is complicated and not something for you to worry about. Though the war will be all of ours, including his. Maybe a war would be good, provided that the council was destroyed. Of course, I wasn't one to talk. Yakatron had seen war, and he was terrified of it. I still wanted to know where they were getting this idea. I tried reading the Covenant of Primus, but it had been about as vague and useless as talking to its author. Yakatron and I spoke a little more. He asked me how I had managed to find him, and so I ended up telling him that I knew Orion and Alpha Trion. I lied, though, and told him that Trion had given me his exact location. The idea that the old mech was keeping track of him irritated Yakatron. I hoped he never talked to Alpha Trion about it. Eventually, we ran out of things to say and Vanguard came to take me to my room. I left early the next on cycle. Yakatron met me at the door. Good luck, he said. Keep Searchlight with you and your spark. I nodded. Thank you. Master Yakatron. Yes. Whatever it is that you need to do that is troubling you, I'm sure you can do it. He smiled. Thank you. Your faith in me means a lot. Thank you for your instruction. It was an honor to teach you. Not as much as it is an honor to learn from you. Master Yakatron bowed deeply and I did so as well. Then I left. I made it back to Eokon, at least satisfied that he was in good health, though my questions had been multiplied by his troubled spark and incomplete answers.